Hi guys, it's Reagan and welcome to the start of another reading vlog. This reading vlog I'm really looking forward to and I'm really excited about my TBR. I had a bit of a lackluster reading week last week, so this week I really wanted to make sure I picked up books I really thought I was going to love, which I feel like is always my goal with every single reading vlog. But two, I'm just looking forward to having a cozy weekend. It is so cold outside and I know a lot of you guys can relate to that. The US has been freezing this past week, so venturing out into the world is not something I'm particularly interested in at this moment. So luckily for me, I have lots of books to keep me entertained, and that's definitely what we're going to be doing. But without further ado, let's go ahead and chat about the books I hope to read. So for this video, I have two books on my TBR. The first is The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. This is basically like a fantasy classic. It is a quest story about the last unicorn as she ventures out of her forest into the world to try to find others just like her. She runs into trials and tribulations along the way, makes unlikely friends. I hear this is like beautiful and emotional and just like very, very classic. So I think I'm going to tackle this first. It's also not too long, so I feel like I'll be able to get through it quickly. The other book I want to read is The Deep Sky by Yume Kitasai. This is a very intense thriller in space, I think. I've heard that people either love it or don't love it, and I'm really curious to see where I'm going to fall along those lines. But it's a very isolated space station setting. I believe it also deals with identity and just conspiracy, and all of that stuff in general really calls out to me. But yes, these are the two books I hope to read. I'm hoping to like both of them very much, again, because I sort of need it. But welcome to the start of the vlog. It is officially the end of the day. I'm gonna make dinner, settle down, hang out with Matilda, who's ready for me to feed her dinner, as you can see. But hang out with Clay for a little bit and obviously do a lot of reading, which I am just so unbelievably looking forward to. There's something about January and February, I feel like I read so much. I'm just really in the reading spirit. So we're gonna embrace that, we're gonna settle into that, and we're gonna do all the reading that we can. Adult lunch bowl complete, and we've unlocked some new fruits and veggies. Clay's is still classic, but I opted for a little variety today. Just whipping up a quick pasta. Just cooking some onions and garlic and some tomato sauce down. I'm gonna throw in some cream. I also crisped up some bacon. This is really a pasta. This is by no means an authentic pasta. It's a pasta of things I had in my fridge. And dinner is served. Matilda is lounging with her bowl. She tucked her bowl in to her blanket and she's having a good old time. Also, a new development in this house is that I got this table and I put this lamp here. More lamps was a goal for this year, and I've added 2 to this room. I need to put some art up here, but big fan of this table. I am actually addicted to Traders. Australia, UK, US, it's so good. Starting my first book of the vlog. I think I'm gonna go with The Last Unicorn. I'm just craving something classic and beautiful, and I don't know, I'm craving some good old-fashioned fantasy, and I think this is going to deliver that. Good morning, everyone. Matilda and I are gonna do a bit more reading of The Last Unicorn, and then I definitely owe y'all a reading update. Spoiler alert, I'm really liking this book so far. It's me. I'm literally dressed like a pilgrim today, but I'm very into it. I meant to do a reading update this morning and then I transparently completely forgot, but let's talk about The Last Unicorn, which I've read so much of. I've read 50% of this book in the past 24 hours and I am truly delighted. I picked this up wanting like a classic quest, classic fairy tale, classic fable story that has humor, heart, emotion, magic, and just like set in a classic fantasy setting. And this is absolutely delivering on that in every way, shape, and form. I really want to watch the cartoon, which I've gotten so many comments about. I've never seen that and I need to desperately. I also feel like this would be an incredible audiobook. I know I'm reading it. I feel like I'm gonna reread this book a bunch though. And I'm definitely gonna listen to it on audio in the future because just the style of how this book is written, I feel like would lend so well to the audio version or just like reading this story to someone. Oh my gosh, but let's take a step back. This story follows our main character who is a unicorn. And she basically lives in a forest, an immortal forest that's always spring. And one day she overhears some hunters in the forest basically saying, well, if this is a unicorn's forest, it's definitely the last unicorn's forest. No other unicorns exist in this world any longer. And this really startles our main character, who's a unicorn, and they decide to venture out into the world to try to find others like her. And she goes forth, she has magic, she is like a beautiful magical being that should be protected at all costs. But along her journey she runs into lots of different trials and tribulations, like the evil of man but also the beauty of man. She's helped and hurt along the way, but like it's a simple story, but like it's not a simple story. And that's like the beauty of fables, you know what I mean? First off, the writing style, stunning but straightforward. And like, I love it. It feels like, oh, I could just fall into this head first. This makes me feel so nostalgic while reading it. I've never read this book before, but it makes me feel like how I felt when I was a kid reading fairy tales and quest-centered stories, which I've always just been a big fan of. And like, this transports me back to that place in my life. It's so nostalgic, again, even though I've never encountered the story. It's also so clever. I love a clever narrative. Like, it's quirky and funny and a little bit strange, and the characters say some really off-the-wall hilarious stuff, but it also has a lot of emotion to it. I mean, our main character venturing out to try to just find others like her, to not be alone, is like a really emotional jumping off point. And two, she's captured, and you see mankind like try to take her because they're, you know, enraptured by her beauty, trap her, keep her from being able to experience the world, which is obviously a metaphor for something larger. But then you also see humanity help her, and it's like this very interesting balance of things. Along the way, our main character, who is a unicorn, has other people sort of join her party. The first is this magician, and he definitely adds some comic relief. He's funny and also very down on himself, and I think that's like an interesting character mix. And the story itself moves quickly. Like, this is not a very long book, and the quest is very much like new location, new trial and tribulation. But like, again, the classic nature of this book, it just works so well. I feel totally enveloped by the story. It's just very nostalgic for me, like straightforward, and I'm loving it. I feel like this is a book that's gonna make me cry. Like, I'm rooting for this unicorn so much. I'm also rooting for the magician character. Like, I'm rooting for everyone involved who who are good. And I just really am loving this so much, and I need to watch the cartoon. But yeah, I've read 150 pages. It's my first reading update. I'm gonna definitely finish this book today, and then I'm gonna transition to my sci-fi read of the vlog, which I'm so looking forward to. But that's where we are, The Last Unicorn. I can see why this is like a classic, because it just simply is a classic. And I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. Hello, it's lunchtime. I've been hyperfixating on the same meal. I don't even want to tell you how many times I've eaten this sandwich the past 2 weeks, because it is embarrassing. I'm like gonna be bankrupted because I just can't stop eating this sandwich. It's not even a complicated sandwich. It's not even a fancy sandwich. It's just a really good turkey provolone sub. And it's like fresh bread, delicious turkey. Everything is just constructed beautifully. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this sandwich. It's perfect. I dream about this sandwich. I eat one and I immediately am like, should I just have that for dinner too? I can't stop. I can't stop. I normally make myself lunch every day, but recently I can't stop eating this sub. So anyway, I'm gonna eat this sub and revel in it. Real treat yourself kind of day, because I picked myself up a latte, and I'm actually gonna sit down and do more reading in The Last Unicorn, because again, I'm trying to finish this because I do want to pivot to my sci-fi book tonight. Hello, I'm in a comfy sweatshirt, and I picked myself up a latte, as I said, and I'm about to sit down and do more reading of The Last Unicorn, but I actually owe y'all an update because I only have about 100 pages of this book left. And I'm still really liking this book. It's just so classic. And I love all the characters that have sort of joined in on this adventure. It also does have a little bit of darkness to it. Even the characters themselves are very complex. Like the side characters, they have their own insecurities, they have their own failings, but they do care about each other and become invested and like want to help this unicorn. And the trials are just like so classic, and the enchantments of everything is just so classic. And I feel like I'm not describing it well, because I don't want to spoil anything, because I feel like encountering and uncovering different elements of this plot is like a big part of the story. But it's just such a human story within the quest, even though we're following a unicorn. This desire for belonging and community and second chances and risking it all for those things is like such a centerpiece of this book. and I'm just really liking it. It's just very charming. I want to already reread it via audio now that I am almost done with it, but I'm actually going to sit down now, enjoy my latte, and finish this book as we speak, and then I'm finally going to move on to the next book of this vlog. Hello, it's evening time. I'm fully in sweats now, but I'm happy to report I did finish The Last Unicorn, and I really enjoyed this book. I'm also hoping to watch the cartoon this weekend because I was just really endeared to this story. I also appreciated that, like any good fairy tale, like it has positive, hopeful messaging, but also there is a little bit of a bittersweet component to the book too. And I feel like you just get really attached to our unicorn main character, our magician, just everyone else kind of surrounding this myth and story. And also how fate can be unfeeling. And like, no matter how you push against the tide, like the tide will still come, literally. And yeah, I just really liked this book. Just under 300 pages. I read it super quickly. It was honestly exactly what I was hoping it to be. So 10 out of 10 in that regard. Tonight though, I am gonna start The Deep Sky by Yumi Kitase, which I'm really looking forward to. I hear this is like heavy on the science. Really interesting, like character exploration, emotional and intense. So I'm curious about the mix of this. I love an isolated space setting, which is what this book has. So I have high expectations, but we shall see. I'm officially going to remove the dust jacket and we will get started reading this later this evening. Clay has left the house to pick us up. A little Friday night takeout moment, which is always necessary, but fresh book for the weekend, I'm feeling good about that. But I did a little sprucing up and this room is looking very cozy. The lights, like my light bulbs, are so warm in person, but are picking up so much cooler on camera. But I guess that's just gonna have to be okay. Millie's ready for a cozy evening, isn't she? I'm gonna park myself right there on that couch corner, put on some reality TV, and wait for Clay to come home with my burrito. Delicious. Skincare is on, retainer is in, and we're about to start the second book of this vlog, which is The Deep Sky. And I'm really excited for it, so let's get reading. Hi friends, I'm here with a reading update. It's another very dark and gloomy and cold day outside, so I'm dressed very cozy, but I'm happy to report The Deep Sky by Yumi Kitase I'm really liking so far. I've read about 100 pages, so I have a lot of this book left to experience, but what I've read so far, like all the different components, I'm incredibly intrigued. What drew me to this book originally is that it kind of, the synopsis reads kind of like this is a thriller in space, like a closed door mystery in space, which it definitely has that component, but it also has a very like human, introspective, literary fiction, character exploration component to it as well. And those two things intermixed, I'm just very intrigued. The chapters are also really short and we're jumping forward and back in time, but I feel like I'm being confusing, so let's take a step back. This book introduces us to our main character, Asuka, and basically Earth is in a very perilous sort of situation. Climate crisis, war, all of the things are kind of coming to a head on Earth. There's Clay, he's doing the laundry. So it's sort of a last-ditch effort by humanity. Thank you, Matilda, also joining in. There is basically this program where like countries can send their best and brightest to be on this spaceship to bring them to like a new planet. Structurally, how existing on this spaceship works is like you're in hibernation for the first third, then you're awake for the middle third, and then you go back into hibernation. We find Asuka, who's a part of the space program. She was also like in school for 10 years, like with all these cadets training to leave on this mission. She's now awake. A year into their being awake on this ship, things are, you know, going as they should for the most part, but then a bomb goes off on the ship, killing some crewmates and also kind of like upending the environment because people were getting to get suspicious of one another, and also the political climate of what's happening on Earth like might begin to impact what's happening on this space station. So it's like a very intense situation. But alongside that, reading as our main character Asuka, we are following her both in the present, like right as this event is happening, and Asuka herself is kind of in an unusual spot on this ship because she is an alternate meaning she doesn't really have like a specific job or specialty. She's there to fill a gap if necessary. So she kind of has this feeling of herself that she is like lesser than everyone else because she wasn't really like picked for the mission. She also, there's a lot of internal discussion about her perception of her identity. She is half white, half Japanese, and she's representing Japan on this mission, but she's also not necessarily super fluent in Japanese, and she struggles to feel like she belongs as a Japanese citizen or an American citizen. She doesn't really know where she fits, and she also doesn't really know where she fits as an alternate on this program. So there's just a lot of like internal exploration and insecurity as it relates to Asuka. And then we also follow and jump back to Asuka's childhood, both as a kid to sort of get an understanding of who she is, her family, but also if she begins her training to try to become a part of this prestigious space program. So there's a lot of different inputs happening, all feeding into like the complex character dynamics and just like some introspective moments I'm liking too. And in general, I'm just like really intrigued by this book. And so far, I'm really liking the balance of like hard sci-fi, because I do feel like there's some interesting information on like robotics or how the space station works, or just like various jobs on the station, which I like to read and learn about. And I think is also a part of this mystery. And then lots of interesting like character moments, and structurally how this book is written, I just feel like it's really pulled me in. And then obviously the mystery, this bomb, and like what else is going to happen from there. I just, so far, it's really working for me. It reads really quickly. So yeah, I'm happy to report I read the first 100 pages of this. I'm definitely gonna read more today. I have some other stuff I wanna get done first, but I wanted to let y'all know, I've read 100 pages, we're 400 pages into this vlog, we're on book 2, we're making progress, and it's like perfect reading weather, I'll show you. Look at this. Perfect. Who wants to go outside in that? Literally no one. I made myself a cup of tea. I'm trying to get back on my tea in the afternoon, coffee in the morning routine, because it's much better for my brain. So here we are. We're giving it a try. Sunday night pizza feast. Oh, that looks good. For football.
Instead, you get automatic first down. McDuffie's hands right.
Good morning, Good morning, everyone. It is so rainy and gloomy this morning. I feel like I have done a bad job recently of vlogging. As it sometimes happens on the weekend, but it's happened. We're here. It's the morning. I'm gonna do some reading. I definitely owe y'all a reading update. I'm happy to report I'm really liking my book. It's so good, and the components are all working together so successfully. So anyway, I will check in a bit. I have a reading update of The Deep Sky. I have read quite a bit, just under halfway. I am really into this book. A lot. Like all of the inputs just make it so propulsive to read, and there's like so many different mysteries at play. But let me take a step back. So obviously I've already mentioned in this book we're following our main character Asuka. She is on like a space mission on a very small and isolated spaceship that's traveling to a new planet. There are 80 crew members, including herself, on this mission, and they are living in small, tight confines, but they also grew up together. As they were all in this sort of like competitive training program, as they were like competing against each other to get picked for various seats from various countries who sponsored this trip. So these 80 crew members aren't just like random meeting for the first time. They know each other incredibly well and have like long and complicated history. So obviously when something like a bomb goes off, resulting in the death of 3 crew members in the midst of their traveling through space, it's going to be incredibly complicated to investigate because, again, everyone knows each other. And then you add the wrinkles of the political reality of Earth, because, again, this space mission was sponsored by various countries who are actively at war with one another, and different countries sponsored like different amounts of seats. America, obviously, being really central in terms of being bullheaded and trying to like control the mission too. So people are from all around the world and they know each other really well, but there's like suspicion that's starting to bubble up, particularly because of the geopolitical realities of Earth, even though they are incredibly far away from Earth. Again, we're reading from our main character, Asuka, and because she's sort of this alternate character, she is sort of being put in charge of like investigating what's going on by the new captain. But you also learn by reading Asuka's point of view and reading chapters, which are kind of, this book is structured like we're reading present day as she's like discovering new evidence, trying to figure out what's going on in terms of who to be suspicious of. But we also jump to her past when she's a part of this training program. So we meet the characters both in present day and in the past in relation to her like experience with them, which is really interesting. But you learn that Asuka is really good at surviving. Like she has really good instincts under pressure. And that's kind of like her skill set. So you see these instincts under pressure begin to occur as she's like trying to solve, you know, this crime on board. But it's just such a complicated crime because everyone knows each other. There's like natural disagreements or tension between crewmates, again, because like if you know someone for a long time, like not everyone's gonna get together, but like suspicion is starting to increase. And the present day chapter so far, like less than 24 hours has even elapsed since this bomb has gone off, which is wild. Aside from just like the geopolitical realities of the countries, there's also these different groups that are kind of like activists loosely. Like they also do like very intense things that some people might call acts of, you know, and so they're claiming, all of them are claiming that they were involved in this bomb. And so like no one knows who to trust, who was responsible, why it's happening, all of these things. And it's up to Asuka to try to like figure out what's happening. She's at the center of this investigation. She doesn't know who to trust. And it's just like so intoxicating. But like alongside this like very riveting plot line, I also just really appreciate how introspective this book is. So much of the story is about Asuka's, you know, like reality of being on this ship, but like we're reading and experiencing this book from her point of view. So we're also getting to know her as a character, her insecurities, her frustration, her desire to belong, her representing Japan, but also being American, and this struggle of feeling like she belongs to either country, this insecurity of being a, you know, an alternate on such an intimate and small crew, feeling like an alternate literally, and yet now she is kind of at the heart of like trying to solve what's happening on this ship, which is obviously a very significant and important role. It's just like a really compelling book. It reads very fast. And it's just so interesting. Oh, and another thing that I think is really cool as like a part of the story is that the ship is small and it's set kind of in the near future. So everyone has these inserts, which allows them to have augmented virtual reality. And so everyone kind of moves, it's very normal for everyone to move through the space station with their own augmented virtual reality overlaid on top of everything. Like for example, Asuka's VR reality is like the forest. So she's like going through the space station, but it's like nature. And so like it naturally paths and molds around, you know, the rooms that they're in. So everything, they're not gonna like run into walls or run into people, and people will like enter the augmented reality, but it's like a skin for existing, and like everyone has their own, and it's modeled after your own like preferences and desires. And something's happening to Asuka's VR where she is like appearing in other people, so she's seeing everyone else's VR. So it's like so interesting because like we're investigating this crime, we're in these various rooms, but then that room might be like someone's living room from their childhood, or like an underwater sea scene. Like, so it adds this like very interesting additional sensory experience to like what's happening. And I don't know, I have no idea who, what, where, and why in terms of why this is happening, but like I really like Asuka as our main character. I think she roots the story so well. I love the past and present nature of this book, and I think it adds incredible context. I like that this book is centering relationships and kind of what can happen in terms of conspiracy of what's happening on the ship, and like it has a whodunit element too. Like there's just so many things about this book that's really, really hooked me. And I've read it really fast, and I'm really excited to see like what in the heck is gonna happen next. But I don't know, I'm really liking this book. I went in with like no expectations, I feel like, because if you look at reviews, some people really love it and some people it doesn't work for them. So I was like, I have no idea where I'm gonna land, but like halfway through so far, I'm really liking it, and I'm on the edge of my seat to see what's gonna happen next. I have literally no idea. I have no idea. But yeah, that's my reading update. This lunch, which is like whipped feta toast, was devised to get rid of a bunch of groceries I was worried about was about to go bad, and it feels bougie on accident. But I'm really excited to eat my whipped feta on toast, I'm not gonna lie. It's evening time now. Fantastic news. I put together a beef stew. I have been craving beef stew for weeks, and it's finally happening. It's all coming together. So this is gonna cook for like an hour and a half. We add potatoes and then we enjoy, but in the meantime, I'm gonna watch Traitors, which I'm obsessed with literally every version of the Traitors. I watched the US version, I've currently watched the Australian version, and then I also have access to the UK version, so nothing will stop me. And so I'm gonna watch the US version tonight, maybe a little bit of tennis. Definitely gonna do more reading, because as I have said already, very obsessed with my book, so should be a lovely evening, honestly. I love this show so much, and it makes me want to go to Scotland again so badly. And my beef stew is done, so we're gonna serve this up. I also have a baguette to have alongside it to like dip in it. Should be good. Hello, I'm in bed and I'm about to sit down and read more of The Deep Sky. This book has hooked me in every way. First and foremost, the conspiracy is so good. There have been so many different twists and turns with the reveals and the clues. I am just as paranoid as our main character. I have no idea who to trust. And the added layers of the technology that the author is adding in this book works really well. I already mentioned there's like a VR component, but there's also AI on the ship. And it just like, everything appears to be glitching. Nothing is making sense. Our main character is trying her best, but it's like, what is happening? And I also feel like because we have these chapters that are set in the past, we, through our main character's experiences of the past, feel connected to these other characters that are on this ship. And we, like our main character, have a hard time believing that any of them could have done this. And creating that sort of deeper connection amongst the characters and this growing up together, having so much shared like collective experience, I just think added a lot to this book. I also appreciate that there has been a lot of introspection with our main character. I really like her. I'm really rooting for her. And there's a storyline particularly centering our main character and her mom. And I also find that interesting. And it's also like even tied into the conspiracy. I don't know. The balance of like literary fiction, character writing, science fiction writing, I feel like is just so successful in this. And it's like every time I pick it up, I can't put it down. So I'm gonna read more now. I'm gonna finish it. I'll probably wrap up my final thoughts tomorrow, but like I'm on the edge of my seat. I have no idea who, what, where, and why, but I am wanting to find out. You know what I mean? And welcome to the end of the vlog. The next day, I'm so happy to report I have finished both books for this vlog, and both books I enjoyed immensely, which was a very refreshing change, especially because of my reading experience of the week prior. But let's just go ahead and wrap up the just about 700 pages I read for this vlog. Obviously, I started the vlog with The Last Unicorn, which is a beloved classic fantasy quest story about a unicorn venturing out into the world. I found this book had such a great balance of humor and heart and like fantasy, action, and like all of those things. It's a very classic fable and story, both in its writing style and execution. So if you don't love like traditional fairy tale, fantasy sort of stories, I probably would say you might find this boring. But for me personally, I love stories like that, and I also feel like this is an excellent version of that. And I was just like really pulled in, really hooked. I loved all the different characters. I loved the different situations we found ourselves in. I loved the combination of magic and this sort of classic medieval fantasy setting. It was just really endearing, and I was pulled in quite a bit. So I read the whole thing and it was great. And then obviously I also read The Deep Sky by Yumi Kidesai. I really liked this book. And I don't know why this book has mixed reviews, because I felt like it was like the perfect balance of so many things. The mystery of this, so compelling. from page one. A bomb went off. I didn't know who was involved. I didn't know who to trust. This isolated space station setting was just mesmerizing. The combination of like sci-fi, like hard sci-fi elements, from programming to the robotics to just how the space station works, was great. The added layer of AI and tech and VR, fantastic. And then this alone could have just been a sci-fi thriller, but the author's decision to include chapters of the past, really fleshing out not only our main character, but really going deep in her psyche on her own perspective of self, her complicated relationship with her mother and her family, the connection to motherhood, friendships through time, and like how things can change and evolve. Like, I felt like there was such a deep level of like emotion present in this book, a really interesting introspective main character, and a sci-fi thriller element. Like, it had so many things and it all worked so well. I could not put this book down. Like, every time I picked it up, I read like chunks of it at a time. The chapters are also really, really short, so it just sort of propels you. I also like we often shift between present and past, and the past colors the present even more. You know what I mean? I just really enjoyed this, and I feel like it's completely sparked a sci-fi kick because I need to read more sci-fi. I love literary sci-fi. It's just fantastic. But yeah, I read both of these books. They were both books I would highly recommend. Absolutely knocked it out of the park. I'm so pleased with both of these so much. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye.